will be the internal champion for increasing usage of AI implementation in your facility? You said design engineer. So I just out of curiosity, like why the design engineer pretty much?
Okay, so the perspective obviously is I am a design engineer.
Yeah,
So
of course.
so when I read a question like that, I'm like, I know where the question's coming from, but I'm not a manufacturing facility.
Mm-hmm.
So I would assume that question is more targeted toward a manufacturing facility or something like that.
Yeah.
But from my perspective, what I'm trying to do, I am trying to champion AI in the engineering space so that we will dictate to a contractor to develop artificial intelligence solutions. And so here's probably the important part for you is I can specify a little loose how I want something to operate,
Mm-hmm.
and contractors will respond, and they might have some great ideas, and then really between the two of us, engineering and construction, we can come up with some great ideas. Now, I do interact quite often in the vendor space trying to figure out who's doing what, and there are some good vendors in the AI space that have already built tools and such to help with the different processes.
Yeah.
So I'm very focused on water, wastewater. There are things in the water, wastewater realm that really are very conducive to utilizing and leveraging AI to improve efficiencies. It's just like any other plant or manufacturing facility. There's always areas where you can leverage some AI to improve your efficiencies. So I try to come up with the ideas as the design engineer, and I can flesh those out to a certain point or all the way if I wanted to.
Yeah.
Be very, be very specific about what I'm asking for, or I can keep it a little loose and then let the contractor run with it. So that was the unpacking of my answer.
Yeah, I mean, so like when we're asking, I could tell you what every, plant operator is going to say. They're going to say someone within the C-suite will make the final decision. So the beauty of these surveys is the diversity in some of the answers, and that's just the answer you gave me is much more different than your typical plant operator would answer.
Sure.
So we definitely appreciate those differing opinions, because I can tell you there's probably not too many other people within the space that you're in specifically that would have responded to this kind of survey. So we certainly value that alternative perspective as we go on to present this research to our experts and such. It definitely just helps widen our audience too a bit. It makes it more applicable towards those people. So certainly I love hearing that that explanation you gave. See, the next one I had a question about is have you experienced any challenges or obstacles when integrating AI technology into existing industrial automation systems? You said yes. Could you just give a couple of examples? You can keep them loose and vague, but just examples of that in your work experience.
So when I was at CDM, I developed this AI product, and it was to leverage efficiencies within a water distribution system.
Yeah.
And so I had challenges, and the challenges, the number one challenge in this space, in my opinion, is educating end users to what this is and how it works and how it can help them. And so I had to put on this teacher hat or professor hat, and every time I would go into a facility to try to, help, I'm trying to help a client. They don't understand really what this is, how it can help them. And so there is this this aura around AI, as there should be, because it is very ambiguous. So you have to kind of teach and educate your end user to what this really is and how it can help them. So that's challenge number one. Challenge number two is actually, finding a real opportunity to use this AI for different applications. And AI requires a lot of data in order for it to be good. So I go in and I look and I'm like, you need more instrumentation in order to bring the proper data in order for this thing to even work. So there's a couple steps that I have to really jump over sometimes in order to bring in the proper amount of data and the proper data in order to make this thing work. And I have heard from vendors, they just want to go charging down the road. They're like, no, we can work with what we've got. And technically they're correct, but in order to do something right, you really have to tap the brakes and start from ground up, make sure you're doing it correctly. So those are two of the challenges that I think are right in my face all the time.
Yeah, and you already kind of started addressing my next question too, which is about just the general concerns with data security and privacy. And you had one of your higher concern is just, I think you had it pretty much at very concerned, and I guess that was what it was, for third-party vendors. Can you elaborate on that a little bit more? I know you already kind of touched on a bit with the education part.
Mhm.
And if so, how can we best remediate that, in your opinion?
So you have two questions there. Which one do you want me to tackle first?
You can tackle why you're concerned about third-party vendors first, and then I can ask
Okay.
you the next part again. Yep.
Okay, so there's a couple bullet points on that one.
Yeah.
Third-party vendors, you have, if I have a plant and I am cyber secure and things are good,
Mm-hmm.
all of a sudden third-party vendor guy with his software comes in, you have no idea what's going on. And I have seen it in the past where I was literally walking through a plant with one of the supervisors and I looked on a computer screen and the mouse was moving around doing stuff. I'm like, whoa, what's going on here? He goes, oh, I don't know. I open the panel and there's a modem in there and it's active and it's running. And it's a cell modem. So he goes, oh, that's okay. That's our vendor who's tying in. We had him doing some work, and there's nothing wrong with that necessarily, but you can see where I'm going with that.
Yeah.
So that is an area of concern where vendors are doing things that you don't know what they're doing, and you really have to trust that you're working with good vendors. And that was a unique scenario. It's I always say probability and possibility. So is it possible that somebody could do that and destroy your plant? Yes. What the probability is very low though. So take it with a grain of salt. So that's one thing that's concerning. The other thing is that you're relying on their own software cybersecurity. So cybersecurity is kind of double faceted in my mind. For I can have a cybersecure plant, and that leaves it up to the OT and ITP personnel to make sure all of the firewalls are in place and set up properly, etc. But in addition to that, you have a software vendor that has developed a piece of software, and nothing within that software has holes in it, access points where people can break into. So that's the more probable one to me, where I'm more concerned about third-party vendors coming in and installing their software. And that's happened with some that caused some major problems in the past for hackers, is they've manipulated some software and have leveraged software holes in different vendor packages, and that can be anybody. It can be anybody's software at all. So not just an AI vendor, but somebody else. So that area is very huge concern for me.
Yeah, I know there's a lot of cyber horror stories out there about, especially in the industrial sector. I mean, I don't think it's talked about enough, the amount of concern for especially physical safety. I mean, we're talking, there's a wastewater facility in Florida, I believe, actually a couple of years ago. A hacker got in and was raising the lye content in the
that
water.
was Oldsmar. Yeah.
Oldsmar, yep. And
it made the news.
Yep. They obviously, that was caught before anything too negative happened. But I mean, cybersecurity is definitely a large concern, especially with third-party vendors. I mean, there is concern just in general with just OT slow adoption with that kind of thing. But especially with the third-party vendors, it is quite the danger. And then my my follow-up question to that is, what's the best way to remediate that, or what would in your mind get that X from very concerned over to like a mildly concerned or no longer concerned about that being uh within the realm of third party people?
So that's a tough
Yes.
answer.
What would be a first step? I guess I can rephrase it as that. What would be,
Yeah.
yeah.
So so I'll just thinking out loud.
Yes.
My initial response is like, I like to work with major software vendors,
Yeah.
because I trust them more.
Mm-hmm.
But that's a bad answer, because anybody, so Rockwell software, for example, Rockwell
Yeah.
has a software package that we use. Siemens has their software package. All of those can have problems. Just because you're the big guy doesn't mean you're doing it right. But I do like, so this is interesting, because I'm going to throw this at you.
Mm-hmm.
I have done a lot of cybersecurity presentations, and
Yeah.
one of the things I usually mention is you can actually have cybersecurity through obscurity.
Mm.
So if you have a small guy that's doing something real unique, for example, he's using COBOL instead of C++, right? COBOL is an ancient O. Well, none of the hackers anymore know COBOL. So you're actually safer when you're using this obscure software. And I always say, look, I'm not telling you to do that, but there is something to it.
Yeah.
So in order to protect the software, you really, in order to mitigate those issues, which is your question,
Yeah.
I'd really want to have an upfront understanding of how that third party vendor does their
Mm.
cybersecurity, how they do their patches and
Yeah.
their firmware upgrades and their software upgrades, whatever the product is. And I would want to know if that they have that flow in place. I'm trying to think of, there's also proper certifications that you can have, and I'm trying to think of what those might be. Something in the ISA 62443 realm
Mm-hmm.
of following a procedure, those types of things. And with cybersecurity, the best you can do is the best you can do. It's just, you can only do so much. But if you're at least following some protocol and you're aware of it and you're trying to do your best, those are the companies that I guess I would look to.
Yeah, so I work, we do have a cybersecurity vertical at CFE Media, and I actually do a lot of work within that vertical. And a lot of the conversations I have with different practitioners out there is, it's kind of like when you're being chased by a bear, and the slowest person is the one that gets caught, but everybody else is okay. You just have to be better than the other guy, so
Yeah,
you just need to maintain some sort of base level that makes you okay. If they're trying to attack you and they can't get through the first line, they'll go on to someone else. Like,
yeah,
it's just maintaining a certain level to help fend off the bad actors in that way. So when you said by obscurity, that kind of made me thinking about that a little bit too. Of
yeah.
just, I mean, if they don't understand Cobalt, then they're gonna go on to the next guy. So I just thought that was kind of funny.
It is it's a reality. I do talk about that a lot when I do cyber talks, but I always caveat that with, I'm not telling you this is how you should do it,
Yeah, I know.
but
Oh,
there's
yeah.
something to it, right?
There is. There definitely is. And then I guess my only real last question for you here is, on your survey, I mean, you said you were above average level trust for artificial intelligence driving automation. What not advice, what words of comfort maybe would you give to those who are maybe a little more um uneased by the idea of artificial intelligence taking on a more prominent role in industrial automation and manufacturing,
Yeah, like I said before, it's really about education.
education?
Um, and I would say, that's my real focused one answer, easy
Mhm.
answer for me, because that's really what I believe, and I've struggled with it myself, because in engineering, oftentimes you have people that don't, they're good engineers, but they don't communicate very well, so they can't teach, they can't communicate their expertise very well, and that's a problem. So it really boils down to educating people on, and this is a subset of what I'm talking about. Education is because I think people are afraid. When you say AI, they think of this, a computer is going to, grow its own brain and start attacking the world or something.
China, yep.
So, educating people like, no, this is how it works. And this,
Yeah.
you can have something that actually is a viable product. So, and the number two thing is kind of a funny experience I had and that's with the internet. And I had a client in South Florida, and he was an older guy, and I'll say older than me, so whatever that means. And he wanted to do certain things. I said, well, you need we should get a DSL line in here or something. He's like, oh, I will never ever bring internet into my control system. And I said, you're going to eat those words, because at some point you're going to do it, and you just need to do it right. Okay, don't be afraid of doing it. You just need to do it right. That's why there's cybersecurity experts. That's why blah, blah, blah. Well, 5 years later, I got to laugh at him as he's bringing in a DSL line, and because you have to.
Yeah.
So that's going to be the same thing with AI. People are going to, some are going to get comfortable with it. Some are just going to do it because they realize they're behind their competition. So at some point, you have to throw in the towel, and the key is to do it right.